Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with yet another of these brand new Aulita Heroes figure reviews, and this time we've got another herbivore as we have the Stegosaurus. And look at how cool it looks here on the artwork that they have included. Definitely about as vintage looking of a Stegosaurus as it gets. And yet again they have this where it's kind of just like a random box, and then you've got like the image of the dinosaur of the figure here on the front, which is super old school, which I love, just like the figure looks to be itself. So let's pop this box open and check it out. Then, just like with the others, we have a little card inside, which again shows pretty much the image that we had seen on the front, live Stegosaurus specimen. And I love that it almost gives you, it's not even really so much of a card, it's more like a photograph. It's kind of, it makes you feel like this is a legit photograph, a very, very old vintage photograph of a living Stegosaurus, kind of. That's sort of what they are going for, I think, with these, and it works really nicely and looks really cool. Definitely an awesome addition to these sets. And then we have the figure itself, and wow, what can be said about this one? That is one of the coolest looking Aulita Heroes figures I think I've seen so far. Definitely a very stylized version of a Stegosaurus, but also a very old school version of a Stegosaurus. Like, you've got that massive body, the tiny head, and on top of that we actually have 4 thagomizers on each side, equaling of course out to 8 total, and that is something that you used to see on very early reconstructions of Stegosaurus. So obviously and very clearly Aulita Heroes was going for that old school look, like they are so good at delivering when it comes to this version of the Stegosaurus. And again, just one of the coolest looking figures I think they've released so far, so let's jump to a closer look at it right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt of our Stegosaurus, you can see again a very small head, exactly as you would see on a Stegosaurus, but definitely exactly as you would see on an old school version of a Stegosaurus. And you can see some really nice variation of color, as we have darker and lighter variations of greens as well as browns. There appears to be kind of like a few random speckles and stuff here on the face, just adding quite a bit of color variation here to the face. You can also see the eyes painted nicely with what looks to be like a yellow and a black pupil. We've also got an articulated jaw, though mine is definitely a little stiff right now. You can see the tongue there on the inside of the mouth. Some okay looking detail, we just can't really get in there to see it, but it looks pretty good. Again, pretty much what you usually see. Again, mine's definitely a little stiff. I'll have to loosen the jaw up at some point. You also have some articulation here in the neck, which gives you the ability to kind of turn the head of the Stegosaurus pretty nicely, also up and down, and you can see kind of like some sagging skin here on the underside of the throat of the Stego. As you move back here into the body, you start to see the plates pick up, of course, and the coloration of the plates is actually really cool. It doesn't really look super cool quite yet, but you can see again we've got some darker and lighter variations of greens as you move back. You can also see a big bulkiness here to the neck of the Stegosaurus as you move further back. Again, the variations of brown here on the underside, which does include numerous variations of browns. Again, just tons and tons of coloration, as you will always find on an Aulita Heroes figure. You also have another spot of articulation right here, which allows you a little bit more mobility. As you move back a little further into the body, you can see how nice the scale detail looks. The skin texture looks really good. Also, again, numerous different tones of color. I love that you could just see such smooth transitions back and forth and so much variation as far as the different greens go. As you move down here into the front leg, you've of course got some more articulation, as you have the articulation there at the top of the leg as well as the knee, and then down here in the wrist as well, which can move around quite nicely, swivel, kind of go up and down, so giving you some nice posability in the leg of the Stegosaurus as well. You can see we've also got the nails sculpted out, and again, numerous variations of color between greens and browns as you move down, so many different tones. Very big and bulky Stegosaurus. You can see all kinds of skin wrinkles down here in the lower part of the stomach region. Again, just about as chunky of a Stegosaurus as you're going to find. You also have, again, more articulation here in the midsection, which allows you to kind of alter the positioning of the midsection here of the Stegosaurus just to create a little bit more posability. And then as we lead up here into the plates, this is the area where I'm saying you can really see some very cool coloration. As you can see, like reddish tones, darker green tones, all kinds of random coloration in there, kind of like striping through the lighter areas here on the center of the plates, which looks really cool, definitely giving a little bit of a design here, a little bit of flashiness to our Stegosaurus. And also the darker tones kind of run around and outline the plates there, as you can see, kind of like black tones running around the outer edges of the plates, and that also looks really, really cool. Moving down here into the thigh, again, you can see some very impressive musculature right there in the thigh, nicely defined as well, even more so in the calf muscle, as that calf muscle is about as big and bulging as if Arnold Schwarzenegger were a Stegosaurus. That's the type of musculature I would expect to see on him. But you can see again, as you move through, we've got more articulation in the hip section. You can also move it out away from the body a little bit. And then as you lead down, you've got knee articulation right there. And then again, a little bit of ankle articulation, which you can swivel and everything. And again, move that leg around. You've got a really nice foot sculpt here on the back of the leg as well. And just absolute impressive coloration. Like as you look down, you can see darker brown kind of highlighting the musculature. You've got lighter variations of browns back here, lighter and darker variations of greens running along the front, and even more of that all going on down here, kind of mixing and meshing together. As you move back up here, you start to see almost like some large scoots moving along the back of the Stegosaurus there, continuing to give it a bit of an armored look, moving down through the course of the tail. Even a slight striping as you move down with a darker tone. We have another spot of articulation right here, of course, which can go up and down, left and right. And then as you move out, you've got another one, and then another one, and then another one out here just to polish the articulation off for the tail, which allows you to, again, kind of create some nice poses and nice displays for your Stegosaurus, alter the way that you position the tail however you would like, which is really cool. But again, as you move out, you can see how nice and smooth and realistic the transitions of colors are. Again, another variation of brown. I don't know that I've seen that brown too much through here. Yeah, it shows up here and there. And again, just so much color. I'm always just so blown away by the amount of paintwork that Aulita Heroes includes on their figures. You can see more really nice texturing as well to the plates. Very nice fine detail. And then as you move out here to the Thagomizers, you can see the Thagomizers have a darker tone, very smoothly transition out to a lighter tone as you lead toward the tip. And I love the dark, gritty feel of these figures. They are like just a really cool kind of a vintage style, even as far as the actual figures themselves go. As I've said numerous times, gives you that almost 80s horror movie vibe and feel, which is exactly what I would love to see these dinosaurs, these designs displayed in. But again, you're not going to see a whole lot of difference on this side compared to what we had just seen on the initial side, because again, this is a fully posable figure, so it's up to you to articulate it and display it. But you can see everything is just as incredibly impressive over here as it was on the initial side. Even the variation of color here moving along the spinal column is very, very nice. You can actually see the spot right here in the upper back where that kind of armored, almost scoot-like appearance begins to show up. And again, the same amount of paint and detailing and everything, effort basically, was put into the figure here on the underside. You can see the Aulita Heroes logo down here. Oh man, these things are just so cool looking, so unique, so different than what everyone else is creating, which is one of the reasons I'm such a huge fan of these figures. And this one is actually a prototype version of the Stegosaurus, and they have actually cleaned these up a little bit, I believe, since I acquired these figures. So the newer ones are actually a little bit cleaner, a little bit higher quality than what you see here. But even this, again, has that dark and gritty feel I just love so much, that I associate with Aulita Heroes. And this is probably one of the coolest figures, in my opinion anyway, that they've released so far. As far as a size goes on our Stegosaurus, it is definitely a big figure. For a length, you're looking at about 11 3/4 inches, just shy of a foot long, or around 30 centimeters. And then for a height, the highest point is this plate, just shy of about 5.5 inches, or right under 14 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line next to our Stegosaurus from Aulita Heroes. And you can definitely see, again, very impressive in the size department, as I said. Probably one of the bigger figures, absolutely the biggest herbivore so far, but probably one of the biggest figures in general to come from Aulita Heroes into my collection. You've also got a Mattel Velociraptor and a Mattel Dilophosaurus. The Dilophosaurus is almost shielding the face of the Stegosaurus with its frill, but you can see again how big the figure is in comparison to these two. Definitely quite a bit larger than your standard Attack Pack or, Savage Strike sized figure from Mattel. Then when it comes to a comparison with a Stegosaurus figure that is not, Mattel or Aulita Heroes, you've got a Mojo Fun Stegosaurus here, which is clearly way smaller. We've also got the Terra by Batat version of the Stegosaurus, and you can see what's cool about this one is this one also had 8 Thagomizers, so this is kind of almost an old school version of a Stegosaurus, but obviously a little bit different. It's almost like a mixture of a closer to updated, but still quite vintage version of a Stegosaurus when it comes to the Terra by Batat version. But obviously the Aulita Heroes is full-blown vintage, which is incredibly cool. We've also got a Bullyland Stegosaurus, which I am actually a massive fan of that figure. Love that Stegosaurus, but I just in general love greens on Stegosaurus, and particularly the green that we have here on the Aulita Heroes version and the Bullyland version is the green that I really like, and you can see again really nice light greens on both of these. Just looks so good on Stegosaurus. And then one of the coolest visuals that I think I've seen since acquiring some of these Aulita Heroes figures when it comes to combining them, we have the recently released Allosaurus here with the Stegosaurus, and you can see how cool they look together, and boy do they ever make one absolutely awesome diorama. Like, once I get a nice space dedicated to the Aulita Heroes brand, in general, I'm going to definitely have to pose these two like this together because it looks like it was meant to be to me, and you can also, just in general, not sit here and appreciate the very cool visual of this happening, but of course see the difference in size between the Allosaurus and Stegosaurus, because again, these were two dinosaurs that lived in the Jurassic period, would have definitely encountered each other, although with the Aulita Heroes brand, it's kind of like they all live at the same time, so it's kind of a mixture of everything in the Aulita Heroes world, but definitely two figures that I was really interested in seeing together. So this brand new, super articulated Aulita Heroes Stegosaurus is fantastic in my opinion, and again, I can see why not everyone is going to like the Aulita Heroes figures, because you have to have kind of an open mind when it comes to dinosaurs, I think, to truly appreciate this. A lot of people are like strictly realistic, up-to-date, perfectly accurate versions of dinosaurs. That's what they like. Then you've got some people that are like, oh, I only like Jurassic Park dinosaurs. Then you have some people that like everything, like me. I love everything dinosaur related. It doesn't make a difference to me if it's accurate, if it's non-accurate, if it's Jurassic Park, if it's old school, if it's just in general ridiculous looking. If it's a dinosaur, I'm going to like it. And specifically when it comes to vintage dinosaurs, I have always been a huge fan of vintage dinosaurs, considering I grew up with those type of dinosaurs when I was younger. That's what they look like to me. That's the dinosaurs that I grew up loving and kind of, again, kept my interest leading into adulthood, where I've become a big fan of everything dinosaur related. And again, the fact that Aulita Heroes creates dinosaurs with such a super cool vintage style just tugs at my heartstrings so much. And when it comes to a vintage Stegosaurus, this is probably one of the coolest looking ones that I've ever seen. It just feels almost like it would be like the type of Stegosaurus I would have seen in like that Yor, the Hunter from the Future movie or something like that. Like, this is the type of almost mean-looking, evil, kind of dark and gloomy Stegosaurus you would have seen trying to fight people in an old dinosaur movie back in like the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. It doesn't make a difference. This is exactly what it probably would have looked like, and it looks really cool. Again, Aulita Heroes did a fantastic job on the design, in my opinion, making it definitely look a lot more unique and different than any Stegosaurus I've ever seen before. And on top of that, they've done a very good job when it comes to the paint apps, as they always do, just adding so much color to it, which always just blows my mind how much effort and time they put into painting their figures. When you do order an Aulita Heroes figure, you have not a worry in the world when it comes to acquiring a very nicely painted model. Like, they consistently paint their figures to the max, and always again blow my mind with the amount of paintwork they include, and that's the same case with the Stegosaurus. There is just so much color on this, and it looks so good because of it. And again, on top of all of that, you've also got articulation galore, creating the ability to pretty much pose it and display it any way you would want, and the In my opinion, icing on the cake is the 8 Thagomisers out there at the end of the tail. Again, it doesn't get more old school than that. So as a whole, this is another super cool release from Aulita Heroes that I am just a massive fan of. So if you are interested in picking this up for yourself, I will include a link in the description to the Aulita Heroes Etsy shop as well as their Instagram account where you can stay up to date on everything that they are creating. But of course, if you want to grab this, make sure you head to the Etsy shop of Aulita Heroes through the link in the description. Grab this amazing Stegosaurus right now, and also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.